call our next witness, the coroner's office. Gets up. They present all the pictures of the autopsy. They make sure that the jury knows the person was in fact killed. They call the next witness, maybe a forensic expert. So the state has to put on all these witnesses. A couple weeks later, they rest. Defense gets up, we're calling our witnesses. We rest. The defense has a second chance. They say, Your Honor, we'd like to call a rebuttal witness for whatever reason. When both parties rest, we're done. We've said everything we could to the jury. We get closing argument. Prosecution goes first. They make their closing argument why the jury should find this person guilty. Then the defense gets up. They make their closing argument why their client is not guilty. And they usually make a pretty compelling argument. Prosecutor gets one more shot at the end of the trial. So they can get up and rebut everything the defense just said. At closing, prosecutors get 2 shots at the jury. At closing, defense only gets 1. Because, remember, the state has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's been challenged in Supreme Court, found to be fair because of the level of burden on the state. They get 2 shots at closing. Let's see if we, okay. So now we've closed. We're done. The judge will instruct the jury as to how they're to behave, how they're to deliberate. And he actually turns them over, charges them over to the bailiff. The bailiff takes over. Says, okay, come on, I got a room for you guys to go sit down and talk about this. They make, try to make them as comfortable as possible because they're going to be there a while. Juries can deliberate for days at times, depending on the seriousness of the allegation. So they're deliberating. They finally come to a verdict. They tell the bailiff, we have a verdict. All parties are notified. And it takes a little while to get everybody back into the courtroom. Maybe an hour, 2 hours later, we've all reconvened, we're back into the courtroom. The judge will ask the jury, foreman, usually the foreman, have you reached a verdict, a unanimous verdict? Yes, Your Honor, we have. What is your verdict? You find the defendant guilty on all counts. Usually what happens. The defense isn't happy about it. They're going to file an appeal. We want to poll the jury. We want to hear from every single juror. They got to stand up and say guilty, and then sit down. Guilty, sit down. The judge usually asks, how did you find this defendant guilty, Your Honor? They sit down. Once the jury's polled, they're excused. They're done. Sentencing phase. That's set at a later time. The defense has to find all the good reasons for the sentence to be, you need to know this one, mitigated. That means reduced. Okay. The defense wants the minimal possible sentence. They want it mitigated. The prosecution wants the sentence aggravated. Aggravated means to escalate. In our system, we have what's called a triad. The expected term, the mitigated, and the aggravated. So it's like 3 different points, 3 levels. In this case, 15 could be mitigated. 20 is the expected, 25 is the max. You follow that? Okay. Mitigated, aggravated, and expected term. The sentence is read into record by the judge. Having been found guilty, I hereby sentence you to the aggravated term of 25 years with the possibility of parole. Then there's a big thing they got to read to them, and they check all these boxes off. Most of the time, if not all, the defense attorney will put on record they intend to file an appeal on whatever issue they found during the process of the trial and or during the sentencing. That's a lot, guys. We just walked through, from the commission of a crime all the way to sentencing. He hasn't even got to prison yet. Re-entry, parole, probation. We haven't even got there yet. That's way too much information, and I get it. Just do the best you can to understand it's a long process, and if you need more clarification, you can find it right here in your book where Chelsea's looking. It's all there. So what if you were arrested for a crime you did not commit, and prosecutors offered you 6 months of probation if you pled guilty? That means you're not going to jail. Would you do it? You did not commit this crime. But if you go to trial, you're looking at a minimum of 2 years if you're found guilty. Minimum. Defense meets with the district attorney's office, comes back and offers you a deal. That's how it works. You're going to meet with your attorney. Hey, I got the best deal I could, 6 months probation. You don't even have to go to jail. Because if you don't take this deal and you're found guilty, 2 years guaranteed. Joe, what would you do? Yeah, it's tough, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on the crime as well.
I'll get a crime for you. We'll go with battery. Battery on a peace officer. That's serious. Battery on a peace officer at some concert that, yeah, you were there. An officer sustained significant injuries. You've been identified as that person. So now you got everybody in an uproar. They want to hang you. You injured a cop, and they want to see you fried. So you're lucky you got this 6 month deal. We want you to go to trial because we're going to get you. And you're going to do 2 years for this. But you didn't do it. You didn't even know the cop. You didn't even know it happened. But yet you were identified because the resemblance is so striking. And you have no alibi. You were there.
I would say 6 months because
Damn, you folded quick. I want some resistance here, no? Mr. Favre?
No, I'm not going to admit to a crime that I didn't commit, especially if I know if I'm innocent of the crime.
You're innocent.
I'm not taking a plea bargain. I'm not taking no deals. We're going to trial, and then hopefully the attorney that I hire is smart enough to know and figure out that hey, you didn't do it, and we're gonna do whatever we have to do to prove your innocence. But I'm not gonna take 6 months. Why? And then to have that on my record.
Yep.
And then I'm done. Once I'm done serving the time. I mean, who's gonna want to touch me?
With 6 months on your record?
Yeah, I mean, and possibly a felony too.
What's a felony?
Yeah.
This is a felony. It stays on your record.
I mean,
so you'd rather be convicted and take a 2 year commitment, then you get out. How are you going to get a job? And you could sit there and yell at the top of your lungs, "I'm innocent." Nobody's going to believe you. If you're innocent, why'd you get found guilty?
there was a case in New York City of a young man that was convicted of a crime that he didn't commit. He ended up doing 3 years in Rikers Island, getting brutalized by inmates as well as the COs there as well. And his case kept getting, they did him dirty, but it's on Netflix too. I can't remember the name of it, but it's on there.
Did they finally find out it wasn't him?
And supposedly he stole a backpack and he didn't do it. He was totally innocent. So after 3 years, the case finally got to trial and he was completely exonerated. And they tried to get him to, take a deal, to confess to committing any crime, and he didn't do it. So he ended up getting out, and he was exonerated of it.
How many years did he serve?
He ended up serving 3 years in Rikers Island behind a crime that he didn't commit. And then after all that was done, because of what happened to him, he ended up committing suicide and he hung himself. But he was totally innocent of the crime.
3 years, your life was ruined.
The judge knew that. The judge was in on it. The prosecution was in on it. They all knew. But in New York, their thing is to get you to take a plea deal or confess to something that you didn't do.
when I was talking about the bail, that was what I was gonna be looking at. The focus of most of the studies and research is done in the state of New York. New York is the one that's most out of whack compared to any other state when it comes to bail. 3 years. So say the government comes back and says, you know, we made a mistake. What do you think you get out of that?
Money if you're lucky.
There's already litigation, court cases, you get $100 a day.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
you really wouldn't get nothing back.
But think about this. You're innocent, but you're a young kid, got a baby face. What do you think happened to you in prison?
Right.
Yeah, you've been raped, beaten, taken advantage of, humiliated. So they're gonna give you $100 a day for your inconvenience. Say, we're sorry, we made a mistake. How do you ever make that right? You don't, guys. You don't. And there are cases, numerous, where after X amount of time, the government found they did make a mistake. And they had locked up the wrong guy. Most of the time, I'm gonna say the people that ended up getting locked up deserved it for one thing or another, but not for what they were charged. The sad thing is, I'm gonna say 20–25%, were completely innocent. Had no business being locked up. How do you make it right? You don't. That's really the answer. So would you plead guilty before we move on? Show us hands. I'm just curious. How many of you would take the plea? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of you would take the plea. Out of, say, 20. It's not good. That's in this class. 4 out of 20 would take the plea. So that means 16 of you would argue and fight. Some of you might get lucky and get a not guilty verdict. But the odds of that happening are so slim. Now, in reality, okay, this is the classroom environment. In reality, what's really going on, let's say it's 20 other cases, not you guys, but 20 real cases that are faced with this question right here. Take the plea, and you're innocent, all 20 are innocent. Take the plea or go to trial. The hard fact is, 19 will take the plea. Maybe 1 will be stubborn and fight it. And that's again based on my personal experience. 1 fought, and they lost. Remember, we don't care about the truth, only what you can prove. And the government did prove their case. And we told the defendant, you're going to lose all the way. You're going to lose, you're going to lose. The DA was actually being kind. Before sentencing, he even added, he goes, tell him he's going to lose. Before the verdict came in, he goes, I'll cut him a deal. He goes, I'll still, because it was wrong, but he had to do his job. He had to do his job. And this idiot kept saying, no, I didn't do anything, I'm innocent. He's innocent, he's still sitting, I don't know how much time he got. But he ended up doing time, state time. It happens. So those of you, the 16 who said, no, I would never take a plea. In reality, most of you will. Once the pressure's turned on, you see what's happening with your case. You've been inside. You've been booked, spent a couple of days in county. You do not want to go back. You're going to jump at this deal. 6 months probation. I don't have to go back. I don't care if I'm innocent or guilty. But that's a sad reality, and that's what happens every single day. Questions on pleas? Taking a plea, not taking a plea? Whether you're innocent, guilty, not guilty? We're all good? No? When we come back on Monday, as I told you this is a long presentation, we're going to talk about alternatives to trial. Instead of going to trial, there's a lot of different things we could do, different paths we can follow. But until then, have a great weekend. If you need to see me for anything, I'll talk to you after class. So have a great weekend, guys.